Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl here with my partner, Brad Gatto, and we have a special edition today, which we're super excited about. Before we get to our special guest here, Brad, what have you been up to?
What's new? You know, this is going to be the first time we've recorded an episode in quite a while, Matt, where it's not baseball.
Right.
I'm not. Well, my son is still playing football, but it's not baseball every day, all day. So as we record this, football just came back, which is kind of a religious experience for me. I was down in Iowa City last weekend, went to the first Hawkeye football game in which they scored 7 points, but zero touchdowns,
There?
2 safeties and a field goal. So not sure how many times that's happened in football, but that's what happened. Well worth the 5-hour drive just to be down there at my dog's namesake, Kinnick Stadium. So just kids went back to school today. So excited about that. I've got a 7th grader and a 4th grader now. So I've got one moving into the middle school and one that went to the intermediate school. And so far, day one of school, 7th and 4th grade, I'm still kind of cool to them. So I know that's what I got going on. How about you?
Well, first day of school for us as well. So I have a 6th grader, a 4th grader, and a 3rd grader. So not too far off from yours. And we have received
one at home still.
And one at home, one in preschool, which has not started yet. So we did not get the full experience today of what it's like to have a quiet home. Let's put it that way. First day of school, no calls from principal or anything yet. So I think we're in the clear. I think it's gonna be a good first day of school.
You know what's funny about you saying that is like I had like this feeling of relief when you said it. I hadn't thought about it all day, but then you said it. I'm like, oh yeah, that could have happened.
And it didn't.
Yeah. I'm not going to name names, but let's just say I've got 2 kids and one of them, there's a decent chance I'm going to get calls about.
Yep. Likewise.
Maybe they just called my wife.
So other than that, we did have a little break from soccer, which your baseball is our soccer. And we did have a couple of weeks there. It has started up again though. So short and sweet fall season. And I love this time of year. I know some people are not going to like me for this, but I love that first morning when it's a little chill in the air. And I did get that over the weekend.
I think everybody loves it. They just know what's coming, what that leads to. And that's the part that everybody hates. So, because I do too. I genuinely, in fact, I got somebody sent me a sweatshirt that was like a play on like a Bible verse, but it just said cold, I'm cold. And then below it said 24/7. So like it was the Bible verse, like Matthew 24/7 kind of deal.
Nice.
And they're like, this reminds me of you. So I hate being cold, but I still love those crisp mornings. So I hear you.
Yeah.
That said, we do have a guest today. So I want to introduce our guest. But before I do, our guest is here because as we talked about in previous podcast episodes, Matt, one of your and I's goals in starting this podcast was to introduce our listeners to people that are living that everyday is Saturday lifestyle. We talk a lot about this idea that some people let their money guide their life and other people let their life guide their money. And they let their values kind of lead their decisions. And it's funny because money is one of those things where if you're not purposeful with it, it will control you.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and again, you get to meet people, and you and I probably more than most because of the industry that we're in, that lead life in a meaningful way and their money follows them around. And we just want to share their stories because it's encouraging, at least in my opinion, for other people to hear how others are doing this and making a meaningful impact for themselves, for their families, for the world around them when it comes to their money in direct and in indirect ways. And so every now and again, we're going to have these episodes where we highlight one of these people and we're lucky enough to have them in as a guest. And so this is one of those episodes. And I'm doing the introduction because this is a person that is actually a friend of mine, a very, very good friend of mine. I met this person. I was thinking about this earlier today, 9 years ago. And I remember he just gave himself away there a little bit. Hang on. I met this person 9 years ago, and I will never forget the very first interaction that we had. It was at a church gathering, and it was outside, and there was like hot dogs and stuff being grilled. And somebody said, "Hey, you need to meet this guy. He's the youth pastor at our church." And I remember them pointing him out, and I'm like, "That can't be him." And and it was. Totally judged a book by its cover. Still do. I'm just kidding. He's one of the best guys. We hit it off immediately and just became really, really good friends. And as most people that are avid listeners or know me personally know, I still am actively involved in the youth group at my church. And so got to work with him in a lot of direct ways. But he ended up leaving the church. I don't want to share too much of his story because I want him to be able to do it, to live what I would call his everyday Saturday. And so it's been inspiring and encouraging to watch him lead his life in a meaningful way and have his values kind of drive his decisions. So I've asked him to be here today. So Mitch Reaume.
You had decided you were going to butcher it so badly before we even sat down.
Mitch, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them just a little bit how to actually pronounce your last name and a little bit about who you are, your family and stuff.
Yeah, my name is Mitch Reaume. You just have to ignore most of the letters in it and you'll get there.
It's got to be French, doesn't it?
It is French.
Yeah. Too many vowels. That's how I knew that.
I flew to France one time and I heard the attendant say it the way it's supposed to be said for the first time ever. And I literally didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know they were trying to talk to me.
Well, let's hear it. What is it?
Oh, I didn't memorize it. I was too overwhelmed with surprise at not knowing how to say my own name.
I love that you just assumed they were right too. Like, not like you're right and that you just gave them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, they're French. They're
very
right.
intimidating. Yeah.
Very intimidating. But yep, my name is Mitch. I'm the founder, CEO of Fight for Something, a company that I started about 7 years ago now as a side passion, and kind of grew into an obsession of wanting to see business used for good in the world. What we do is we build brands to fight for things that matter. So to some people, myself at times included, it looks like I'm just a guy with ADD starting companies all over the place that are not related. You're not totally wrong.
I was gonna say both of those things can be true.
Yes,
they're not like mutually exclusive.
Both of these are true. The thread that ties all of the, whether it's events, screen printing, coffee, whatever it is that we're doing, the thing that ties everything that we do together is there's some purpose beyond just making a profit that runs through everything. So started as a side passion about 7 years ago now, and about 3 years ago, it became my full-time job. And really the whole thing was born out of, Brad mentioned we went to church together. For my wife and I, we were having a meeting where we sat down and we're looking at the impact that our money was having. And I realized that I hated an assumption that I had bought into, that the only money that was having any impact was, in religious language, call it a tithe. In non-religious language, call it a generosity fund. Basically, the money that was going straight out the door to charity every month. I hated the idea that I'd bought into, that was the only money that had any impact. And I got kind of hooked on this idea of what if I was more intentional with who I spent my food money on, and when my wife buys cute crap for our home, where it comes from, and when I got
this is very nicely, but crap was the adjective.
He did say cute though. Cute crap.
Well, I guess crap was the noun.
Yeah. Adjective is cute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Crap is a noun.
The thing itself is crap, but
it's cute.
It's cute. Cute crap.
Do you think your wife's going to listen to this?
50-50. Actually,
that right there told us.
No, she did say when she heard I was doing a podcast with Brad, she was in.
Okay.
Other ones, I know she is not. Matt asked me before. He's like, "How many podcasts you done?" I said, "I think this will be number 3." I would bet $100 she did not listen to number 1 or 2. So,
and you don't have $100, so that's a big bet.
Also true. Also true.
Oh man, I should give a massive disclaimer. Mitch and we should maybe even talk about this a little bit I didn't even think about this. We should probably talk about this a little bit on the podcast today. We've had a relationship where not only are we good friends, but we've actually tried to live life in an intentional way together financially. Maybe we can speak to that a little bit later. So sarcasm's our love language.
Yeah, if you don't give some sort of disclaimer, people are going to think you're a jerk. You'll be like, this guy is way too familiar. Matt should be running this ship.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. How do we edit this out?
Start over.
Anyway, so talk a little bit about your family too. So you mentioned your wife.
Yep, my wife and I live in the Twin Cities here, and we are.
What's her name?
Her name is Stephanie.
Okay.
Steph. She's a teacher in Bloomington Public Schools, and we became parents 6 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness!
Congratulations!
Thank you. Yep. So I always say weird, dumb things already. If I say something really out of left field, I'm blaming it on sleep deprivation today.
You look more more mature
Oh,
last time I saw you. And yeah.
I'm super mature all the time.
I actually got to see Mitch this weekend as a dad for the first time because I haven't got to see. I got to meet baby Wes.
Yep.
Or is that what you call him, Wes or Wessie?
Wesley boy.
Okay.
Whatever
But his full name's Wesley, correct?
Yep.
So you had a boy named Wesley.
Yep.
I got to see him as a dad. Like I meet Wesley for the very first time. And it was a weird experience. You know, like in life, you kind of imprint things in your brain and your brain goes back to kind of the first moment in time that ever happened to you. And you always kind of like, you're stuck there. When I think of Mitch, I think of him as the youth pastor at our church as a young 20 something. And so the idea of you as a dad in my brain does not compute super well. I got to tell you, you're knocking out of the park.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite moments of parenthood so far in our whole 6 weeks of experience is with your first kid, when you get in the car and start going home and you have that feeling like they're letting me take this human home. Like, I feel like I'm stealing or someone's going to be like, no, we made a mistake.
Why did they hand me a manual when I walked out of there?
That was the most bizarre car ride of my life in the best way. But it was like, what is going on? This is Twilight.
Yeah. So let's dig in a little bit. So married, you live in the Twin Cities here. Your wife thought she was marrying a youth pastor, which you did for a period of time.
Clearly was in it for the money.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's a school teacher. You're a youth pastor. So you guys really had these large financial ambitions.
Huge buckets of money.
But during that time frame, you had started. So there was a period of time that it overlapped where it was kind of a side hustle for you, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So it started off as, 5-10 hour a week side hustle where it's let's create an online marketplace that celebrates local, celebrates small business, and is funneling money into charities in our state that people love and want to invest in. And so it started off as that. And then, it's easy to do 45 hours at the church and 5 as a side hustle and even 10. And then we start hitting our first holidays and things start growing. And then it's like, okay, now we're doing 45 and 15 and 45 and 20. And so eventually it got to a point where, people kind of ask like, why did you leave ministry? And usually they're looking for this really juicy story of how you left super mad or how, and I always felt like a brat in the moment saying it, but I had 2 jobs that I love and I just couldn't do either of them well if I didn't give all of my time to one. And so made the decision to step away from vocationally working in the church about 3 years ago and have been building Fight for Something full-time ever since.
At the moment you talk about, was that actually a moment you came to, or is it a buildup of where you realized the give back just wasn't meeting your standards? Let's hear more about that.
It was for sure a buildup. I mean, I remember like the first holiday season where I'm doing, 45 hours at the church and 25 hours at the side hustle. And then it's like, okay, that was a lot. That started to weigh on the family a bit more. But then, things go back to normal. And so that was kind of just like this first pinprick of like, that was a little too much if you want to have time at home and have time with friends and do all these other things that you still love and that matter to you. And so that was kind of like the first pinprick of something might give at some point. But then, January comes and a lot of what I do is retail. And so holidays are crazy, drowning in work. And then January hits and things are super slow. So you kind of forget about that. But then as the year kept going and as the business kept growing, even kind of our downtime of the year started becoming 15 and 20 hours. And then it was really a buildup. There wasn't like a moment where it was like, something's got to give. It was just kind of this dawning realization that I was having of like, man, I love both of these jobs and I want to give both of them more. But I also know I'm human and I have, X amount of time and I want to give my best energy. And so it was really this kind of buildup that, and like emotionally, it was really hard for me because I loved my job at the church. I remember it like as it was dawning on me, I remember trying to like kind of push it away and like, no, I don't really like that thought. So I'm just not going to go down that road. And eventually it was like, no, you kind of have to do something here. So it was for sure something that I probably dragged it longer than I should have, because I had 2 jobs that I loved, and I just like selfishly wanted to hold on to both. But I just knew I couldn't.
So how did you ultimately come to the decision then, when you think about this concept of every day is Saturday and kind of living your life in a meaningful way and having your values guide your decisions and guide your money? You're stepping away from, not that youth pastors get paid a ton, but at least
That's a statement.
it's consistent.
Yep.
It's consistently little, but it's consistent, right?
It's consistent. It's consistent in many ways.
But you're going into entrepreneurship, and so there's far less consistency, obviously, with cash flow and things like that. But why was that your Saturday? Why in the moment, and this is more of a personal question for me because I'm still mad at you for leaving the church, was it that you picked fight for something?
Why did I break up with you, Brad?
Yeah. Brody, if you listen to this, I love you. He's the guy that took over for Mitch.
Yeah, it was really hard to pick. I think ultimately I just knew, like, a part of me has always been entrepreneurial, even before I like knew that word or would have identified that. You know, like looking back in high school, I realized I mistakenly ended up becoming like a jersey dealer for all of Wayzata High School. I will not name which professional sports league because I don't want them coming after me, because it turns out licensing is the thing. But I'm a freshman in high school and I don't know any better. But like all of these things, you know, growing up would have these businesses I would start that were just like a fun passion because I love sports, or I loved working outside in the summer, whatever it was. And I just knew if I never paired this building fight for something and trying to see, you take my love for business and starting things, and then combined with my passion for just seeing money used intentionally, which is really what my company is just wanting to leverage the marketplace and leverage people who want to be intentional to say, let's do these things in a way that is more thoughtful and more intentional. And I just knew if I never did, I would regret it. And so it was kind of I know one of them's got to give. I've spent a good chunk of years as a pastor and have loved it. I have never spent all of my energy on business. So I feel like I have to, like, I owe it to myself to give it a shot.
Throughout that whole journey, well, at what moment did you decide you were going to go into ministry, and what was your thought process there?
When I was in high school, I didn't grow up in the church, and I found faith midway through high school. And because it was so, like, finding faith was such a big part of my life and who I was, I wanted to be a part of that process for other people. Like, I just grew to love that. And so not that long after I kind of got involved with my faith, I realized, I think this is, like, I want to do this. So really, like, as a junior in high school, I was looking at what does it look like to be a pastor, and ended up going to Bethel in St. Paul and went to college for it. And yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
So now you're 3 or 4 years into full-time with Fight for Something. Is that right?
Yep.
I got that right. Okay. So in that period of time, you make this decision, you're living, making sure that your values are guiding your decisions, right? What has been kind of the biggest challenge you've faced over the last 3 to 4 years of being a person that is using their values to make their decisions versus kind of the almighty dollar determining some of that for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing I constantly find myself butting up against is, for me, a big piece of the conversation. You know, my company falls under what's considered a quote unquote social business. It's this niche category of business that exists for some reason beyond just profit.
Sure.
And for me, it like drives me crazy that that's a niche category. Like, to me, it feels like every business should exist that way. Like, that should be a given. That's an assumption. And for me, it's really important to figure out, like, the difference between some companies, without wanting to sound too cynical, will pretend to care about something for marketing purposes, but never actually own any of the sacrifice themselves. Especially like in the world of retail, that's like a very real thing. For me, there's always this question of, like, if I'm going to say we care about something, I'm going to make sure that I feel some of the costs and sacrifice of what it means. Like, I don't think anyone should say they care about something that they personally aren't financially investing in some way, whether it's their time or their money, right? Like, we should all fight for those things with who we are. And so as a business, I personally am always trying to build sacrifice into our models. And so it means we're just competing on thinner margin is kind of one thing that I constantly come up against. And I want it to be margin that I am at least partially, if not fully eating, and so to do that in a way that has integrity, to go, yeah, we actually do care about fighting for kids in the foster care and adoption system and for refugees and these different things that we are sinking money into. There's, at the end of the day, there is a financial cost to it. And we're trying to run a business on thinner margin. So that's something that I'd say is like constant through all of our businesses that we're running up against. And then there's all sorts of rabbit trails for the different companies. Supply chain issues have been a huge nightmare. That if you want to see a grown man cry, we can go talk about that after the episode.
I can only imagine not being in the world of retail. I think that is. How about the flip side of that? What's the biggest victory, or what word do you want to use for that over the past 5 years here?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really rewarding for me to connect with other businesses who are looking for ways to be intentional, sacrificial, and are like serious about it, not just from the marketing standpoint, and to pull those people together and go, look, we can make a real difference. It doesn't take, Jeff Bezos' money to make a real impact. Like, you can get a group of 20, 50, 80 people, and you can like significantly change some things. And so like right now we're in the midst of building a scholarship for refugees living in Minnesota to go to college, and seeing people starting to like come around that and get excited around that is really, really fun for me, because it's people who are, we don't position these things as, hey, you should give so you can get. We'll do this, we'll do that. It's, hey, there's something really cool happening here. We would love for you to be a part of it. And there's different moments like that over the years where people choose to give sacrificially and are looking for ways to build that into who they are, that feel like a huge win for me personally. Like, at the end of the day, that's my ultimate goal, is to see social business become a norm again. And anytime, like in little interactions, you see businesses or individuals just choosing to be more intentional is really, really rewarding for me personally.
Just how many businesses have you started?
He doesn't know.
He doesn't even know.
We ask him this question all the time.
Well,
let's get a count here.
It's one business, but they're all DBAs under it. So technically one, but we've got a coffee roasting company.
DBA stands for doing business.
Sorry. Yep.
Come on.
Sorry.
Lingo.
Yeah. So we've got a coffee roasting company, Emiliani Coffee. We've got a screen printing company, Custom and Kind, and then a retail arm of Custom and Kind is Northern Glasses. And then we've got the Minnesota Christmas Market and the Northern Lights Festival. So those are right now everything that we are.
That's it. That's all you got.
That's all.
So,
and you have a retail location set up at Ridgedale Mall here in Twin
yeah.
Cities.
My wife loves this to spend money at your retail location.
Yeah, and we have a store. A lot of what we do is intersecting with small businesses, and so we've got a store in the mall right now called Minnesota Strong, and yeah, really finding ways to overlap with small businesses who love what they do, and finding ways to succeed and run together.
So if you, for the listeners, because when I look at your story, Mitch, and there's a lot that's obviously been left out because we don't have, we're not going to do a 17-week series on all of the decisions that you made. But when I look at your story in short order, there's a lot of sacrifices that you've made personally, your family's made you and stuff together to be able to do what it is that you're doing. And in order to, in my opinion, in order to live your every day as Saturday, it is always going to be in some part countercultural, because our culture trains us to have our money lead our life, not the other way around. And so in that, what has been some of the, for you and Steph now, kind of as a family, when you think through that, if you could give advice to somebody that's sitting out there thinking, yeah, really cool, really proud of that Mitch guy and what he's doing and the decisions he's making, the sacrifices he's made. I don't know if that's for me, or I don't know if I could make those similar sacrifices, kind of chase my values, what sort of advice or thoughts would you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of my story, Steph and I's story, has been, naming things that we value. And like, this is kind of just a nerdy thing to say, but like spelling out our budget and looking at where things match up and just really trying to drill into like being authentic about the things we say we care about. We've had moments where we look at things that we say we care about and we notice like, oh, we're not actually spending that much time or money or using our voice towards that at all. We should either stop saying we care about that, or we should start investing more. And that has honestly been like a really grounding principle for me and for us, is to just like use our budget. And people live differently. Brad and I love to poke at each other about budgeting and what it looks like in our life. I'm very detailed. He's less detailed. But
that's about the nicest way you could say that. Thank you.
That's about the nicest way.
I feel like you just took your shoes off in my house and came in and did my dishes for me. That was very kind.
But using our budget as a reflection of our values and constantly holding that in front of us has been a really life-changing practice. And I would just say, like, I don't know anyone who has done that who doesn't have some sort of, it might look different how it has impacted them, but I don't know anyone who's gotten really intentional with their spending and the story they want their life to tell and have gone, man, that really detracted from my life. And so for us, it's just like trying to be intentional with our money and those things and naming it.
That's an awesome principle to take away. And so I just want to repeat kind of what you said for the listeners to make sure everybody heard it. Basically creating two lists, right? Creating the list of what you say you care about and what you value, and whatever that list comes out to, and then looking at the way you spend your time, creating a list of where all your time goes and a list of where all of your money goes, and seeing if there is any overlap there at all and where the overlap is, and then using those lists to kind of be intentional about your budget and where you spend your time and where you spend your money. Budget, again, how you budget time, energy, effort, finances, all the things.
Exactly.
So in other words, looking at yourself in the mirror before you leave your house. Which the irony of that is hysterical, because I don't know.
Yeah, only metaphorically. I don't own a comb, but
I'm also Mitch's barber. Fun fact for all the listeners.
That's a great fun fact.
He comes out to my house twice a year to get his haircut.
I see.
I mostly want to drink your beer, and I know if I show up for a haircut, I can drink at least one of your beers.
Oh man. Well, we tend to wrap these podcasts up with just 5 fun questions. They're not prepared. Matt and I have no idea what we're going to ask you. It's kind of whatever comes top of mind, and we expect your response to be very similar. Now, I don't have a dump button, like there's no 7-second radio delay here, and I've never been so scared to do this with any guest as I am with you.
I was going to say, I feel like you second guess doing this part of the show.
But we're just going to ask you 5 questions at the end of today's podcast. So Matt, why don't you lead us off with your first question?
Yes. What is your favorite book of all time?
Oh, Harry Potter, for sure.
That was easy.
Yeah. Harry Potter is an incredible book. Whole series.
Books. Okay, the whole series. Okay, you're going with the whole thing. You're just going to lump them all together.
Whole series.
That's got me. Is there one that stands out of the series to you?
All of them. Literally all of them. I could have said the Bible thing, but that's like, I'm not going to be the former pastor who comes on and drops the Bible card. That's like saying Jesus in Sunday school. Like, come on.
I think I know the answer to this question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. You are offered your last meal, and it's your last meal. What are you getting?
Oh, I'm going to surprise you here. I know what you think it is, but it's not that. I'm going.
Well, tell everybody what I think it is.
You think it's chicken nuggets from McDonald's for sure.
You're correct. That's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Which would not be the worst thing, but I might have you just drop a vat of creme brulee in front of me, and I might go to town.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know you were such a big creme brulee fan.
I'm very sophisticated.
Like with anything on top of it?
I'm French.
Come on. Fair.
Or my name is, I think.
So no, any fruit or anything on top of it, or is it just?
Oh yeah, dump all the berries on.
Okay.
All right. There you go.
I'm healthy.
All right. We drop on you today that we're going to send you on a trip somewhere, just you and Steph. You only get to pick one destination. You're going there for a week. Where are you going?
I'm going to say Thailand because we were supposed to go to Thailand right when COVID hit and had to cancel that whole bit. So we are still really itching to go to Thailand.
Love it.
If you could start another DBA, because technically it's one company and money was not an issue and time was not an issue, but it was just about where you have a passion for, where you think you could make a big impact. What other company would you add to your suite?
Oh man, probably something with vacation real estate, like cabins. My wife and I used to Airbnb out of our house, which is not normal, I understand, but we did it and I loved every second of it.
You have quite the stories from.
Yeah. So something with hospitality and real estate again, probably.
Our last question. So far, we're not, we don't have to edit any of this out so far. We're doing good. We got one question left.
You on a roll. What was the last adventure you went on?
I bike the North Shore every year.
Cool.
The first year we did it, we went from Minneapolis to Grand Marais, and then I was like, that's dumb. The leg from Minneapolis to Duluth did not add anything to my life. So now we start in like Hinckley and this year we went to Grand Portage, and it was great. So I'd probably say that, or the whole like having a kid thing. I guess that's kind of an adventure, but it's a different kind.
Everything else you've done.
Yeah.
It's a tiny adventure having a kid.
Yeah.
6 weeks though.
6 weeks.
And I saw him. He's real. He's
real
alive. Like he's real.
Fortunately, he looks more like his mom. We found her baby pictures and he looks like her. So there you go, kid. You're welcome.
That's awesome. Well, Mitch, I appreciate you coming into the office to record this with us. When we put this podcast together and started thinking through people that we know, not only clients that we serve and them kind of living this type of life in their retirement years, or friends, family members, colleagues, acquaintances, whatever, that are doing it in their working years. You were one of the first people that I thought of. And as frustrated as I still am that you're not at the church, because you were phenomenal with those high school kids and imparting, just love on them in a meaningful way. It's fun to watch from the outside because, like you were talking about in your story, just being as intentional as you are about the decisions that you make is just encouraging to see. And that's what I hope our listeners get out of this episode of the podcast, is that intentionality doesn't lead to perfection in life, and it doesn't lead to an avoidance of hardship or anything like that. But it definitely leads to being able to lay your head on the pillow at the end of the day and go, you know what? I know what I did today, no matter how hard it was or how easy it was. You feel this sense of accomplishment and passion around it. And that's just awesome to see. So thanks for taking the time to come in and join us today. If you want to find out more information about Mitch and his company and the things that he's doing around here in the Twin Cities, or even support him by purchasing goods from his many, many businesses, from coffee to t-shirts to candles to coasters to,
I got a 45-foot inflatable igloo if you want to rent that from me. Let's go.
Mitch, where can they find you?
You could go to fightforsomething.com and find out about all the different arms of business we have out there right now. So
we'll put a link to the website in the show notes, so you can check for that there as well. I didn't do this right. I actually, when I got up and did my little workout this morning, I had a Fight for Something t-shirt on. Oh, I should have worn it today. I did. I have a lot of Fight for, and if any of you are out there wearing Fiat swag, that all comes from
or
Mitch.
If you've received a fight box, that also comes from Mitch.
True.
That is true.
Yeah. You guys have been good friends to us. So thank you.
Again, thank you for being here. Everybody, thanks for listening to Every Day is Saturday. If you want more information about our firm, Fiat, you can find us on our website, fiatwm.com. Matt, I think that was another successful episode. What do you think?
Yes.
I think we crushed it. I think we're just getting better at this. By next year, we're probably going to be the best podcast ever. So that said, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of this episode again, Mitch. And everybody, you can join us next Saturday. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. the content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.